Um, Welcome everyone to Dataverse by Nino Paul. I'm so excited to get into this today.
Yeah, we've got a really great one lined up.
We absolutely do. This is episode 19, and today we are diving deep into building a resilient data security and compliance framework.
Sounds heavy, I know, but it is so crucial right now.
It really is. Look, I mean, everybody wants to talk about the shiny stuff, right?
Oh, for sure, the flashy dashboards.
Exactly. The business intelligence, the advanced analytics, AI, digital transformation. But listen, all of those shiny things are completely useless without the foundational bedrock of a robust security and compliance policy.
Useless and honestly dangerous.
Right. If your foundation is cracked, the whole house comes down, which is why I've brought you in today, the calm voice of reason, to help us all navigate this wildly complex landscape.
I try my best to stay calm, yeah.
So set the stage for us. Why is this so urgent for the person listening right now?
Well, because a security policy isn't just some regulatory checkbox anymore. I mean, it minimizes data exposure. It is quite literally the only way you can build trustworthy BI. If you can't trust the security, you cannot trust the insights.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start with the first major pillar here, which is risk management.
Yeah, that's where everything begins. You have to know what you're up against.
Right, so how do we actually identify and assess these threats? Because they seem to be coming from everywhere.
They really are. The core of risk management is breaking down those internal and external threats. So you're looking at cyber attacks, obviously, but also natural disasters, and the big one, human error.
Oh man, human error is the scariest one.
It is. And to assess these, you use tools like risk matrices. You map out the likelihood of an event against the potential impact. It gives you a clear picture of what will destroy your business versus what is just a minor inconvenience.
Okay, so once I have my matrix and I know what keeps me up at night, how do I actually stop these threats?
Mitigation and monitoring. You put up your firewalls, you implement intrusion detection systems or IDS, and you really need a security information and event management system, a SIEM.
A SIEM, right, like Azure Sentinel.
Exactly like Azure Sentinel. It gives you real-time monitoring. It's constantly analyzing the network traffic, looking for anything weird.
So that handles the external perimeter and monitoring, but what about the people actually inside the house? How do you ensure only the right people see your sensitive data?
That brings us to access control, which is huge.
Break that down for me.
The gold standard is RBAC, role-based access control. It's built on the principle of least privilege.
Meaning you only get access to the exact data you need to do your job and nothing more.
Precisely. The marketing editor doesn't need to see the HR payroll database.
Right, definitely not.
And you can get even more granular with LBAC and RLAC.
LBAC and RLAC.
Yeah, list-based and row-level access controls. So even if someone has access to a specific database, RLAC ensures they might only see the rows of data that pertain to their specific clients, not the whole company's client list.
Oh, that's incredibly smart. So you're locking down the very cells of the spreadsheet, basically.
Exactly. But all of that is useless without proper authentication.
Multi-factor authentication, MFA.
MFA is an absolute necessity at this point.
Yeah.
That and biometrics. Passwords alone just do not cut it anymore.
And what happens when someone does get in? How do we know what they did?
Audit trails. You have to maintain detailed logs of who accessed what and when, and you need to keep those logs for at least a year.
A whole year.
Minimum. If there's a breach, forensics teams need to go back and trace the breadcrumbs. It's all about accountability.
Okay, so that covers the risk and access, but man, navigating the regulations out there, it feels like an alphabet soup of compliance that just overwhelms people.
Alphabet soup is a great way to put it. It can be a headache.
Can you break down these frameworks for us? Like, what are they and why should the listener care? Let's start with GDPR and CCPA.
Sure. GDPR in Europe and CCPA in California are all about protecting personal data. It boils down to explicit consent. You have to ask users to collect their data, and they have the absolute right to opt out or be forgotten.
Right, which totally changed the internet a few years ago. And then there's iPay.
iPay is strictly healthcare. It's about safeguarding personal health information, or PHI. The penalties for messing that up are massive.
What about the broader, more international ones like ISO 27001 and SOC2?
Those are international standards focusing heavily on risk management, processing integrity, and regular audits. If you have a SOC2 certification, you're essentially proving to your clients that their data is secure in your cloud. It builds immense trust.
Okay, so to pass those audits, how are we physically protecting this data? Let's talk encryption.
Right, so you have to encrypt data in two different states, at rest and in transit.
Let's start with data at rest. It's just sitting on a server somewhere.
Yep. For that, you want to use AES 256 encryption. It is incredibly strong. And you manage those encryption keys using cloud key management services.
Like AWS KMS or Azure Key Vault.
Exactly. They keep the keys locked away from the actual data.
And what about when the data is moving, data in transit?
That's where TLS comes in, Transport Layer Security. It creates a secure tunnel for the data to travel through over the internet.
Makes sense. And for the really top secret stuff.
Then you need E2E, end-to-end encryption. That means the data is encrypted on the sender's device and only decrypted on the receiver's device. Nobody in the middle, not even the service provider, can read it.
That is fascinating. Now, something I noticed in the research was this whole concept of data localization and sovereignty. The rules change depending on where the server physically lives, right?
Yes, and this is a massive trap for companies operating globally. The U.S., for instance, actually lacks a comprehensive federal data localization law.
Really? None at all.
Well, save for a few specific sectors, like finance under the GLBA. But generally, the U.S. is pretty loose about where data is stored physically.
But Europe is a totally different story.
Oh, the EU is incredibly strict. If you want to transfer EU citizen data out of the European Economic Area, you have to use specific legal mechanisms.
Like the standard contractual clauses, the SCCs.
Exactly. You can't just spin up an AWS server in Ohio and dump European data there without those legal agreements in place.
Wow. Okay, so we've built the fortress, we've got the locks, the guards, the compliance checkboxes, but no system is perfect. What happens when a breach actually occurs?
It is not a matter of if, but when. You will face an incident.
So what's the playbook?
You need an IRP, an incident response plan. And it has very specific steps. First, preparation, which is everything we just talked about. Second is identification.
How do you identify it while it's happening?
Automated alerts. Your SIEM system flags a massive data download at 3 a.m. Then you move to containment and eradication. You isolate the affected server so the infection can't spread, and you remove the threat.
Cut the cord, basically.
Right. Then comes recovery, getting systems back online safely. And finally, the post-incident review. What broke? How do we fix it so it never happens again?
Are there specific tools that help orchestrate all this panic?
Oh, absolutely. Things like AWS Security Hub or the Azure Monitor Suite, they centralize all those alerts so your response team isn't flying blind. If we connect this to the bigger picture, incident response is just putting out the fire, but disaster recovery is how you rebuild the house.
I love that. And that brings up my favorite rule in tech, the 3-2-1 backup strategy.
It's a classic for a reason.
It really is. For the listeners, the 3-2-1 rule is you keep 3 total copies of your data. 2 of those are local copies but on different mediums or devices. And 1 copy is kept completely off-site or in the cloud.
Yes. If ransomware locks your primary servers and your local backup, that off-site cloud backup is what saves your entire company.
But how fast can you get it back? That's where RTO and RPO come in, right?
Precisely. Recovery time objective, or RTO, is the speed of restoration. How many hours can your business survive being offline?
For an e-commerce site, maybe minutes.
Exactly. And RPO is recovery point objective. That's about acceptable data loss. Can you afford to lose an hour of transactions, a day's worth?
So how do you hit those really tight objectives?
You leverage cloud geographical distribution, something like Amazon S3 cross-region replication. It automatically copies your data to a server on the other side of the country in real time. If a hurricane takes out the East Coast data center, the West Coast one kicks in immediately. Business continuity is preserved.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. We've talked about firewalls, encryption, cloud replication, all this incredible tech. But at the end of the day, human error is still the biggest risk, isn't it?
By a country mile, you can have the most expensive locks in the world, but if an employee holds the door open for the bad guy, it's game over.
So how do we fix the human element?
Security awareness training. The mantra has to be, cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility, not just the IT department.
Right. It's training people to spot the phishing emails.
Phishing, malware, social engineering. People need to know what a suspicious link looks like. They need to understand why we enforce ridiculously strong passwords and MFA.
Let's actually do a quick rapid fire on this. Let's trade off some absolute do's and don'ts from the source material.
I'm in. Let's do it.
Okay, I'll start with cloud environments. Do automate your configurations and secure your access.
And don't hard-code credentials into your applications. Don't over-provision resources. And please, never assume the default cloud settings are secure. They rarely are.
Good ones. Okay, what about for everyday employees?
Do use a trusted password manager And DO, keep your operating system and apps updated constantly. Those updates patch vulnerabilities.
Got it. And for the don'ts, don't reuse your passwords across different sites, don't share them on sticky notes under your keyboard, and absolutely don't submit sensitive payment info over plain text email.
Exactly. And there is one more human element people always forget.
What's that?
Third-party vendors. Vendor risk management is huge.
Oh, because you're giving them access to your house.
Right. You must audit a vendor's security policies before onboarding them. You need to look at their penetration testing results and enforce strict data access limits on them, just like you would an employee.
Because if they get breached, you get breached.
Exactly.
To make sure all this really sinks in for you listening, I want to walk through a few specific real-world scenarios that were detailed in the source material.
Yeah, applying this context makes it much easier to grasp.
Let's take scenario 1, an attempted IP theft, intellectual property. Let's say a rogue employee tries to download the company's entire proprietary code base.
Okay, so in a properly secured framework, your SIEM system immediately detects the unusual access pattern, a massive download volume that is totally out of character for that user.
The anomaly triggers the alert.
Right. So the automated system instantly locks the user's account. It prevents any further access, and it immediately notifies the security team and the authorities. The data never leaves the building.
Boom. Threat neutralized. Okay, scenario 2, an engine performance breach. Let's say we have an aerospace company monitoring real-time engine telemetry, and external hackers try to manipulate the data feed.
This is a scary one. But here, the intrusion detection system, the IDS, flags the unauthorized access attempt at the network perimeter.
So it spots them at the fence?
Exactly. The incident response plan kicks in automatically. The compromised subsystem is logically isolated from the rest of the network, so the bad telemetry can't corrupt the main database.
Containment.
Yes. Then the IT team moves in, patches the vulnerability the hackers tried to exploit, and brings the system back online, upholding all regulatory compliance without missing a beat.
That is the power of a good IRP. Okay, final one. Scenario 3, protecting highly sensitive collaborative design files. An architecture firm working with external contractors around the world.
So first, the data at rest is secured using AES 256 on their local servers.
Right.
Then, they use strict RBAC, so the external contractors only get access to the specific blueprints they're working on, not the whole project.
And when they need to send those blueprints back and forth,
They utilize end-to-end encryption, E2EE, for all external sharing and communications. It ensures secure collaboration, even over public networks.
it is just amazing how all these pillars work together. Risk management, access control, compliance, and disaster recovery. They form this impenetrable web.
When done right, yes.
And that really brings us to the core value of this whole deep dive. For you listening, prioritizing this stuff isn't just about avoiding some massive regulatory fine from the EU.
No, not at all.
It's the only way to build actual trust with your stakeholders. When they know their data is safe, then you can finally unlock the true potential of your business, intelligence, and analytics.
You can innovate without fear. But
Yeah.
building a level of security that tight, with that much automation, it requires real expertise.
Absolutely. Which is exactly why Ninopol is here. Ninopol offers tailored data management solutions and consulting to help businesses unlock their data's full potential safely and securely. You don't have to build the fortress alone.
This raises an important question, though, as we wrap up. Something that really stuck with me from the source material regarding data retention and disposal.
Oh, yeah. This is a great point.
We spend so much time, energy, and money trying to securely hoard our data forever. We back it up, we encrypt it, we duplicate it across regions. But considering the massive risks of data retention, you have to ask yourself, is the most secure piece of data the one you finally decide to delete?
Wow. That's a profound thought to end on, because hackers can't steal what doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly.
I love that. Well, thank you all so much for joining us for episode 19 of Dataverse by Ninopol.
It was a pleasure.
We invite you to stay curious, review your own compliance frameworks this week, and keep exploring. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.